Yeah, I was going to do the. Hey, everybody, this is Midwest Chicana, the Chicana Latina Chingona segment. Oh my gosh, that's just powerful words all in itself. I am so excited to bring you ladies back. Thank you all for accepting to come back for at least once a month and get together and just talk all things about our community. I know the last segment we had a phenomenal conversation going on, and it felt like we needed to continue to have more of that conversation. So I wanted to ensure that you all brought your voices back to this platform. And I'm not the one going to be doing all the talking. I want you all to share your experiences, your stories. So I'm here to be a part of this, and I just want to thank you all for doing this first and foremost. So let's do a round robin, and we are waiting for Kristen to jump in. So we'll load her in as soon as she gets in. So let's start with Laurie. How are you doing, Laurie?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Tell us a little bit about who you are for the audience in case they don't know. I'm sure everybody knows Laurie. She's an amazing educator here in Kansas City. But tell us a little bit and something amazing, and maybe even a shout out to anyone in your community that you want to shout out to.
Okay, I am Laurie, also Loricita. I am an educator. I'm a grad lab coach at the amazing Central High School. And I would like to give a shout out to my husband who allows me to ride, who actually rides with me on a roller coaster of whatever adventure I'm taking him on. Currently, I just started a new adventure. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, Deanna. She'll tell me or not.
Absolutely. This is what this platform is for.
Okay.
So everybody, please, side hustles, businesses you have, whatever. This is the place to do it.
Yeah. So I just started becoming an independent paparazzi consultant. And I actually didn't realize how much I loved it doing lives. So if you have a jewelry need or addiction, I am your person. Also, that's one of the exciting things I'm doing. So yeah, it's good to be here.
Cool. Very cool. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet everyone.
Sorry, I was like in between giving Kristen the link. So, all right. So, Erica, how are you this evening?
Hi, my name is Erica Garcia Bav. I'm doing great. I'm super excited to be with you guys again tonight. Special shout out to I have to shout out to my husband if you shout out to your husband. So special shout out to my husband who is super, super supportive whenever I want to do anything like this. One of the things that I have going on, I'm not sure what I can say. That's so funny. Anyway, I'm in a group called Topeka United. We're working on a few things. I am part of the City of Topeka Human Relations Committee, and you'll probably see us in the news here in the next week. We're working on something pretty exciting relevant to police reform. So you'll probably hear about us pretty soon if you haven't yet. So yeah, just some exciting things working on in the community. I'm a former educator too, so I totally love to hear from teachers. And I'm an engineer now. So yeah, a little bit of everything.
We're so excited to have you back, Erica. Thank you so much. And Laurie, you too as well. Diosselyn, your turn. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And if you want to do shout outs to anybody, please do it too as well.
Hey, hi, everybody. Hi again, I guess, because this is my second night this week. So what I've been up to, honestly, nothing really exciting. One of the things that I did today was one of the buildings that we're working on had tagging on it. So I went to go paint. So that was fun. Just went there for 2 hours and I got to be outside. I got to do something I like. And yeah, so anyways, that was my biggest thing today. And my shout out is still going to be going to the Alley Artists KC, the girls who are starting the mural projects in Argentina. I'm still very much inspired by them. So
cool.
Thank you.
That's awesome, Diosselyn. And yes, that's a big thing. Taking the time, out of your day to help the community in regards to, working over those tags. And yeah, definitely need you in this community. So thank you. Laura, nice to see you again. So excited you're here. So let's hear some shout outs and what you're doing.
Yeah, so Laura Flores, I just moved back from Lawrence, although I'm a Wyandotte County native. I grew up here, wasn't born here, but that doesn't count. And I want to give a shout out to Sharon Hansen, She did my hair, got me some highlights. But she's also this badass Latina Chicana who she's doing her work at Wicked Studios in Missouri. Look it up, get your hair done. She's a barber and a hairstylist, so she does everything. So that's my plug and shout out to her. Besides that, I'm a teacher for elementary, although my passion's still kind of with high school. And I'm just excited to be back.
We're excited to have you, Laura. And I put that name on there. So if I spelled it incorrectly or anything, because, you know, it could be a different way of spelling, just change it up and add it in the chat. So that way people can look them up for sure.
Awesome. Got it.
Irene, we're so excited to have you. We cannot tell you again how much we appreciate your voice on this platform, and just glad that you said yes to us. So let's talk about Irene and some of the great things you're doing and some shout outs.
Oh my God, it's actually an honor to be here with young people. The young up and comers, the leaders of our community. It really is an honor. My name is Irene Caudillo. I'm president and CEO of El Centro. We are a for-purpose organization or corporation who provides social services to predominantly the Latino community, and we serve Wyandotte and Johnson counties. And what I will tell you is we are working on a lot here. Dual language preschool, advocacy. We're working on municipal IDs and a safe and welcoming ordinance in Wyandotte, and also working with the mayor in Roland Park. We are really trying to promote a census. So if you have not filled out your census, or your family members and friends, we have until the end of September, and it is so important for power and money for the services in our communities. So we're continuing that until they stop at the end of September. And a really big one is that we are really trying to promote a more culturally and linguistic relevant message for COVID in our community. We have to get the message across to our families how important their safety and health is. Mm-hmm. So we want to make it fun, but we also want to really push our public health departments and our communities to understand there's a message and important visuals of us, for us, that really will make an impact. And my shout out has to be to the folks that work with me. I can't do it without the staff who are not only the pulse and the ears and voice of our community, but also really push me to know where we need to be, what we need to do, and how we need to get there in a manner that only their talents and skills can help us do that. So that's my shout out. I know my family is sitting there shaking their head, but it has to be my staff right now, because they are in the thick of it. And I'm also wanting to make sure we promote their health and welfare and safety. But we've got to do what we need to do to really meet the needs of our community. And I owe it to them every day.
You're phenomenal, Irene. Thank you so much for all you do in the community, and especially, yes, definitely your staff. I know just working with them personally on the festival and the board meetings, and just they're so amazing and so giving, and I appreciate all you do. And definitely the educators here on our panel as well. You know, this is a scary time, and we're going into a scary world. Our school at Park Hill South just showed a picture of all the new teachers with no masks. Granted, they were at lunch, but they were talking. So having a little bit of a formal talking in the lunchroom. So it's a little scary. So yeah, definitely give it up to all of you. Kristen, so glad that you joined us. So sorry about the link, and we will do better next time to ensure you got that correct. But we're so glad you're here now. So we're doing shout outs, and definitely what you're doing, who you are and what you're doing in the community, or what's going on with you.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with me, Deanna, honestly. I'm just kidding. No, I'm Kristen Altoro. I'm very excited that I'm back here. Honored that I was asked to be back. I am currently doing a lot I just bought my planner, so I am trying to, I will actually use it this time. I work as a banker, so I actually just got a promotion, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very excited to represent Latinos in this industry, especially being a woman. Upper leadership in banking and the financial industry is very white male dominated. So I'm very excited that I think I'm actually like the first Latina in this position and actually in leadership in the bank. So I'm very excited about that. And so I'm thrilled to kind of make that mark. But I'm also participating a lot in the arts. So I do theater and I do a lot of music. Currently on deck, I have a live stream that I will be doing with Enrique Chi of Making Movies and my two other sisters. And we are going live with an organization called the Green Line. I think actually, Deanna, you're a part of it, aren't you?
I did. You guys are the ones doing it. Like all I did was a little video to support you all, but you all are doing the amazing work. And congrats to you on this huge platform for yourself. You totally deserve it, and I'm so glad to hear that.
Thanks. Yeah, actually, I'm really excited about when a friend of mine contacted me about the what's going on the 28th. It's a live stream on August 28th, and it's about basically redlining has been eliminated for some time, but we know that it's kind of still stuck around just mentally for a lot of people. And me working in the finance industry and in a bank, I know a lot about redlining. And in banks that I have worked in, I've seen it still done before subconsciously by people. So I was really excited to be a part of the Green Line Grows. And I'm very excited that it kind of ties into what I do too. So a shout out. Actually, I want to give a shout out to that. I'll just do that. I want a lot of people to tune in. There's a lot of really great local artists. I'm all about supporting local artists right now that are going to be using their platforms to speak about something so important and to bring more attention to Black communities and Brown communities and the injustice that they face as far as receiving any aid in that regard.
Absolutely. And I'll put a link in there when we start talking. I'll grab it from Facebook and I'll put the link in there so everybody can check it out and tune in for sure. So we're all here to support you, Kristen, and definitely support the movement 110%. And that goes for everybody here. Anytime that you have anything amazing going on, just let us know and we're gonna shout it out and continue to support. So let's get ready. We have 30 minutes, exactly 6:30. So we have 30 minutes to talk about amazing or crazy or whatever is on our minds tonight. So this is like an open platform and we want the community to please send in your comments and questions. Like anything, even if it's hey, what's up? That's beautiful. Let us know you're here. Tell us hello, say hi. We'd love to show you on here and know that you're a part of this community and that you're supporting the Latina and Chicanas here in Kansas City. That's what we need. We need to have more support, and especially from other Latinas and Chicanas here and all over for sure. So I know some of the topics we asked and we kind of talked about was first and foremost, Kamala Harris getting the nom for the Democratic Party as VP. I mean, hello, that is just like, yes. So let's start there. I'm opening it up to y'all. I'm tired of myself hearing myself talk, so you all talk.
So I didn't realize I was saying her name wrong all of this time. And I'll leave it at that. I'm glad I say her name wrong, but all day I was saying it over and over. And it was a mutual friend of Deanna and I, Leah. Thank you for that educational tip today, Leah. It was just playing in my head over and over. And I don't even remember how I was. Irene, how was I saying her name?
Kamala.
Kamala. And that's not how you say her name.
Wait a minute. How were we saying? I'm trying to now get it right as well. It's Kamala, right?
No, that's wrong.
No, that's wrong. Kamala.
Kamala.
There you go.
Name. We were saying Kamala. That's right.
So we better get it down, and we better vote
We
on
have to
November.
get it right.
And I'm so glad that we're bringing up the fact, because name pronunciation is so important. It is.
It is.
And knowing people's names correctly. And I have an accent, but a very terrible one. And so even saying things the right way and the way they're supposed to be said is just so embarrassing for me, because I hate, saying anyone's name incorrectly. So I'm so excited that Leah shared that with us today, because that's so important.
I'm looking at you, Deanna, like, you have an accent?
Thank you, Laurie, for calling that out. Are we going to go into that now? I had a little bit of that last night in regards to the whole, being not American enough, not Mexican enough. And Diosselyn was on that call as well,
You have an accent?
Who remembers the scene from the Selena movie?
Yes, Selena.
Yes.
Yep. Exactly.
We gotta be
we have to be more Mexican than the Mexicans and more American than the Americans, both at the same time.
Exactly.
That's true. That
And
is so true.
It is.
It really is.
Yeah. I talked about that a little bit last time, where I said, when I've gone to visit beaches in Mexico, and my Spanish is okay, but I'm not fluent. And so like, eres gringa. But then here, it's things like, go back to where you came from. It's like, well, please.
I've always had this thing of like, where do I belong? Like, where do I fit in?
Right here. Right here.
And yesterday, being on the panel with Diosselyn, I was the one on the other end of it, where I don't speak Spanish, where everybody else did. And it was very interesting to be able to see their perspective, and they were honest in the fact that they were the people that said, oh, you're not Mexican enough if you don't speak Spanish. And I'm glad that they were very honest about that. I think that takes a lot of courage and just internal, giving, because on the opposite end of that, it is so traumatizing. And I didn't really want to say a lot of that last night, because I know it's hard to talk about sometimes. But for me, that has been traumatizing and still is to this day, very traumatizing.
I'm going to agree with you, because it's very overwhelming. I remember one time I was at the store. It used to be on Independence Avenue. It was the Sunfresh Thriftway. And she told me in Spanish how much my groceries were, and I was like, oh, I don't speak Spanish. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were Mexican. But she was in there Mexican, and I was like, just give me my stuff so I can go. I mean, that was the kind way. And I was just like, oh.
So where I struggle with that is I know just enough to start the conversation, just enough to make you think I know Spanish, but then they might go on about anything else, in Spanish, and I'm like, okay, now's the part where I have to admit I don't know Spanish. So I struggle with whether to just say that to begin with, or to just say that once I don't understand. I'm like, okay, how do I handle it this time? And I don't know the right answer, to be honest with you, but that's something.
There are always assumptions on who you're going to be and what you're going to sound like. And I can remember, actually, even before I opened my mouth, being the first question being asked is, do you speak English? So there's always those assumptions, even prior to any language. I'm always honest. I envy, those that are bilingual. That's always going to be something that I have a passion for. I understand almost everything. I don't think there's ever times when I get confused, because I have a mother who only spoke Spanish. But in her wanting to learn English, she allowed us, and I say allowed because my grandmother hated it, allowed us to speak English to her. So it became that easy, where I understand it, but trying to speak it, I just will not tell people. People make an assumption, oh, Irene's bilingual. Oh, no. No. I'm gonna have to jump in here. It does. It at the beginning and in early stages of my life, you just did not want you did not want people to know you didn't, or I'm going to say people, our community, to know that you didn't. But at this point in my life, someone said it's never too late to learn. I agree. It's not too late to learn. It's your confidence and ability to be able to. But I have gotten by so much the same way my mother says I've gotten by without learning, without having to speak English on a regular basis. I get by because the people that I surround myself with, that it tends to be that easy. But I don't tend to get upset because of the identification or misidentification or I'm not Latina enough, or because I don't speak Spanish. I've gotten over that. I know who I am, and I know the value I have in it. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, that's the one thing, if I could change, is I want to be bilingual. And yes, there's still time, but we all know the older you get, the harder it is. That's why we start with the young folks and making sure that they keep their ability with both languages, that we really push parents to understand it's an asset that is really important as we move forward.
And I'd love to get Kristen and Diosselyn and Laura's take on this as well. But yes, Irene, I do have to agree with you that I hope people see that even though we weren't in that situation where we learned Spanish, we are in that situation where our kids are. I know my kids are bilingual. They embrace it. They love it. And so I think giving us grace and the fact that maybe I don't know if I could ever learn it at this age, because I feel like my brain isn't even functioning how it should be anymore. But the fact that we are supporting our kids to ensure that they get what we did not get. But Diosselyn, Laura, and Kristen, I'd love to have your thoughts.
Yeah, so for me, like, language has been, I guess, a journey for me. I remember so young, so vividly, going to Mexico probably several times. Traveling was kind of prevalent early age for me, so I would be in Mexico probably every other year. And so I just remember those embarrassing moments of like, oh yeah, she knows Spanish. See, like, say something. And then I'd be on the spot, like a whole room of people putting this child on the spot, like, speak Spanish. Like, you're from the United States, but like, we know you probably speak Spanish. And I'm like, I understand every single thing they're saying, but the embarrassment was so much. And I'd just be like, okay. And they're like, that's not Spanish. And I'm like, you guys, like, I don't know. And so that's just from very young, having that. And it kind of like trailing off in high school. Sumner, they had the regular Spanish class, and then they had the native speakers class. And my teacher caught on after Spanish 1 that I was a Spanish speaker. Not really, because I wanted to get the very rudimentary. I was like, I know conjugation and tenses I still struggle with. And so that specific part of the language I just wanted to learn by going to the basic classes, and they stuck me in native speakers. And they were reading books, and I'm like, I don't know what this sentence means. Like, giant words. And I'm like, but then next step of this language journey was having my daughter and wanting her to have the language, and then having to start working. And so I was working at Michael's. That didn't help me at all with language. But after that, I worked at Chipotle. My boss, right off the bat, he's indigenous Mexican man. And then the manager below him, she's also a Mexican woman, immigrant, and mostly speaks Spanish. So he asked me if I want my interview in Spanish, and I'm like, I'll try, but just know. I always have a disclaimer before I talk to someone, at least early on in my language journey. Disclaimer, I understand everything that you're saying, but if I answer in English, it's fine. Just keep talking to me in Spanish. Because I feel like that helps a lot with people like, oh, you're not Mexican, or, oh, I thought, well, like, yes, I understand. I'm struggling. The vocabulary like had to be pieced together and translated in my head. Now I'm at a comfortable point after working at Chipotle for so long and having a kind of like being forced to like speak Spanish, and also getting out of this. I feel like there's this weird connection, and like, let me know if you also have this too. Like, my husband, he speaks Spanish, but we don't speak Spanish at home because I talked to him when I first met him in English. Even though I speak Spanish to his parents, like it just feels uncomfortable. Like for some reason, there's just some weird like connection about like that initial relationship that initiated in English that I feel weird talking to someone that I did not initiate a relationship in Spanish. Like, you know, so that's one thing that I think might also play a role in like maybe carrying that language forward, especially with like children, maybe even at school. Because I didn't speak Spanish to my friends at school either, and that's why it kind of fell off. But now I'm at this weird point where I'm like, my vocabulary is kind of there. I can probably get my daughter up to speed a little bit, but she's also to the point where she doesn't understand what I'm saying anymore if I just tell her stuff. Just the basic like, hey, how are you? What are you doing? But she can't respond anymore. And luckily she's still 5, so I've got some work to do. But I mean, it's been a journey, and I feel like when we're talking about assimilation and like being from here and one there, I think people tend to forget about there's no black and white. There's everything's kind of like on a spectrum, not just gender, language, identity. All of it is exists on the spectrum. And some people will say they're not Chicana because in the past, Chicana was a political identity. It was like, oh, you associate with these people, that means you're for the certain movement, and that's kind of a negative connotation of that. Whereas now maybe we see it more as like as an identity that we embrace because yeah, we're not exactly Mexican American because we're not first generation, or you know, it's somewhere in between. So I kind of just wanted to add that it's kind of like this idea of just everything being on that spectrum and like gray scale as opposed to just black and white.
I'll go. I do a crappy job at like chiming in. So I grew up in a bilingual home. My parents both speak Spanish and English. My mom, I think, helped my dad learn, which is funny. But she tells me all the time he used to try to write her letters in Spanish and it would be really funny. But anyway. You know, as I've gotten older, I've realized that I know more Spanish than I thought I did. And it's very crazy about what you don't even realize that you pick up. Growing up, the majority of my life, I spoke English to my grandmother's disappointment. I think that a lot of my grandmother's generation, there's a lot of like, you know, you should learn your own language. It's a pride thing, you know, which I understand entirely. And I do wish that I, you know, felt more confident in my ability. I'm kind of the person that under pressure, I probably can speak it. And when I go to work, if there's somebody who absolutely can't understand English, I know that I want to step up and help them. And I know that I know enough to do that and step up and do it. I don't do it maybe very well, but I can do it and I can carry a conversation. But there's a lot of times where I feel like in my head, I respond in Spanish just naturally somehow. But then I'm like, I didn't know that I knew that word. And so I'm like, that's crazy that in my subconscious over my 29 years that I've kind of absorbed that and I just never tapped into it and used it. And I think a lot of it comes from, sorry, my boyfriend is crawling on the floor behind me, so he's not in the camera.
This is what happens. This is the enjoyment of this podcast. It's okay. Yesterday we had husbands walking through, cooking. You know, it's all good. Dogs. We've had dogs as co-hosts. So,
but I think that where it comes from is the confidence, and the lack of confidence for me comes from, like Irene said, my own community. You know, because there are so many different dialects, I, as a Puerto Rican from New York, maybe I won't understand somebody who is directly from Mexico. Or, you know, when I talk to people who are Dominican and their Dominican accents are really strong, you know, I get discouraged because then I'm like, I can't understand what you're saying, but I kind of think it's along the same lines. And I've been in this situation too, where I'm trying and then I get laughed at, you know, And it kind of puts me down because I'm like, I'm trying, and I want you to like acknowledge that I'm trying and maybe help me. But I think that, you know, it says a lot that our own community does a lot of saying you're not doing this enough. And I think that we need to acknowledge that, because I think that it's discouraging a lot of like young Latinas or Chicanas like myself from trying and from, you know, from learning, because if I start to learn, I'm going to feel the pressure to learn, or else I'm a disappointment, you know, and I don't want to learn in that pressure. I want to learn because I want to learn. And I want to make sure that I'm supported by my community to help me do that, rather than kind of be laughed at as the Latina who can't fully speak Spanish. But there's a lot actually within the community, the Latino community, that I feel can be addressed, that has too long been under the surface. I mean, you've got colorism, you've got, you know, the whole language barrier that people, you know, need to come together and support each other on, because that's part of that internalized racism. I hate to say it, but we've got to all confront it. But I think that we can do a better job as a community supporting one another in a sense of pride and confidence rather than shame. So that's my take on it.
And I love that, Kristen. And Diosselyn, you are next. I want to hear from your side, because you are bilingual. You are, you know, and you're from Guatemala. So that's not even how people would probably assume you're Mexican, because in Kansas City, everybody's Mexican, right? My El Salvadorian friend always gets called Mexican, and she's like, I am freaking not Mexican, you know? So, but I want to talk about that more, Kristen, for sure. Let's talk about that after we hear from Diosselyn too, about maybe what our perspective is in regards to the community, and what we need from the community when it comes to support. What can our community do better for, you know, people, are all of us in that sense, for sure. Okay, Diosselyn, take it.
Yes, and I'll try to see if I can connect it somehow as well, because, yeah, like you said, my take is a little bit different and a little bit broader. Language has always been really difficult for me, as a matter of fact, just in any Spanish, English, whatever. I identify more with Spanglish, as a matter of fact. If you ask me, what do I want to speak? I speak Spanglish. I am so much better at that. My tongue gets twisted if I speak too long in English, and my tongue gets twisted if I speak too long in Spanish. I don't know why. But the thing is that it has been really hard for me. One, because when I started learning English, I've always been really conscious of my accent. And even when I did presentations in school and everything, I think even at work, like, you can correct me, Irene, I don't even know when I worked at El Centro, but I think I would always start off with, if I start speaking in Spanish, or if you start hearing my accent, let me know so I can slow down or, you know, accommodate. So I always started that way. So I was very, very, very conscious of language all the time. The other thing is that when I did speak Spanish, obviously I have had a lot of Mexican influence. So I think I speak like a Mexican, but I can't pick up on the double meanings that they have, like the jokes and everything. You talk to me and you can straight up tell that I'm not Mexican, you know? And it goes back to, there's certain words that I use that are not in the Mexican Spanish. But then when I go to Guatemala, they tag me as Mexican. They're like, oh no, they're like, you don't speak Guatemalan. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't. And that's when I become more self-conscious, because when I'm in Guatemala, that's a whole different story. It's just like, I really can't pick up on a lot of the jokes, the words, even the food. It has been always very like, so this is what we call beans in Guatemala, but this is how you say it in Mexico. Okay, got it, you know. I also like to travel a lot. So I've gone to Puerto Rico a lot, as a matter of fact. And when I went to Puerto Rico, the Spanish was not something that I could keep up with. I actually got that kind of attitude back, but they're like, oh yeah, you don't speak Spanish really. And I'm just like, what? Like, what? And that was so different for me, because I never had that. When I was in Guatemala, I was in Panajachel, and there's a lot of indigenous individuals there. Indigenous speak English, Spanish, and their native language, their dialect. So props to them, because I was very astonished when I went down there, because they spoke to me in English. I don't know what it was. I hadn't even said anything, but when they approached me, they spoke to me in English. They did not speak to me in Spanish. And they were telling me like $5. And I was just like, what? How do you know? Like, I look Hispanic. What do you mean? And they just speak so differently. The culture down there is so different. Even my sister, like, when they buy stuff, they're trading. They're not really like setting for the price. They're trading. They're like, okay, but what about if I offer you this much? Would you go for it? And I'll buy this too, you know? So my sister does a lot of that. My sister in Guatemala. So when we were shopping, she'll be like, just don't speak. She'll be like, just don't speak. Go over there, go with the girls, and you'll be fine. I'll be like, okay. So that's what I did. So going kind of with everything. I've always been self-conscious because of my own people, because of the people here that are bilingual as well, because I'm not a full, like 100% English speaker. You know, there's a whole bunch of different ways that my language has been not perfect. So I try to always encourage my friends. So when my friends are speaking Spanish, or when there's certain different things, like I try to embrace that Spanish. Even at work, I was in my emails, my professional emails, I'd be like, hola, how are you guys? Like, you know, things are fine. And at the very end, I'd be like, que tengan buen día, or gracias, or, you know, I would always try to invest that Spanish in there, or that Spanglish, because I don't know, I've always struggled with it, but I never found it fair. Even my thesis in high school was about Spanglish. I wrote my whole paper in Spanish, and my last page was in Spanglish, because I talked about the phenomenon for it. It has been such a struggle that I always try to encourage it more and embrace it more, because I know it has been such a struggle. And I mix the languages because I'm just like, no, like, this is just who I am. And that's going to portray myself, because it has been a long journey to try to embrace my accent, to try to embrace the fact that I don't know a full, like 100% Spanish of a region. So I don't know. It's always been interesting, and I try to advocate. I try to correct people as much as possible.
Yeah.
I try to encourage Spanish. I practice with my friends. I just went on the trip with my friends, and they're English speakers learning Spanish. And what we did is that we were telling stories in Spanish. And I was just kind of correcting them here and there, but we were doing it in Spanish at their pace. And it's always encouraging to see that, because I know how much of a struggle it has been. So I try not to make it a struggle for others.
Well, and I think that's a very good point right there, Diosselyn, is the empathy that you have for your community. That goes a long way. And you even doing the extra work, which shouldn't even feel like work. It just should feel like you're just supporting your community, right? Your fellow neighbor. One of the things that has come across, especially with last night's episode, was, the power. Sometimes people just feel like this power when it comes to knowing something more so than somebody else in the community. It even comes in, like when we were talking about not-for-profits, you are at this level and don't give up a seat because it's just feels good here, and this is kind of where you're at, but never reaching down to bring up somebody else to sit where you're at right now. We've kind of had that conversation. I'd like to know what you guys think about, like, why the community is the way it is. And I know it's a long history of, this happening, but maybe even ways that you, like Diosselyn's doing right now, just the fact of encouragement.
Yeah. What you need to think about is the structure that was built, that has been built to do this, and we have to own as as Latinos the anti-Black culture that we have. So if we talk about this American dream, and I myself, have learned to say it really is a parent, grandparent, parent stream, right? Because when we talk about we come for the American dream, that American dream was is white, male, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, affluent. So we're trying to reach a dream that, you know, that says, okay, we're going to be as far away from Black and as close to the, you know, whites as possible. And we've got to change a lot of that focus even within our own, because that's where the colorism comes in. You know, I was always the dark one living in Missouri, you know, in Kansas, you know, because all my relatives were in Kansas. Yes, going to school and living amongst predominantly African Americans, and not speaking Spanish. So I mean, it was always kind of, I just knew how I was treated, and that's kind of the way we are as a community, that we have to begin to realize. And somebody said it, that continuum. You know, if everyone's on a continuum that's different. I think I always say what we have in common is our differences, right? And if we can only accept the fact that the American dream is as a parent wanting much more for our kids than we had, and embracing a language and culture that means a lot to us. It changes the way our kids, you know, embrace the language, embrace our culture. It changes the way we look at skin color. And it does. And if we look at all of that that's happening now around structured racism, you know, around the redlining. You talked about redlining. We have contracts still in Wyandotte County where that is still kind of in there, that people are signing, you know, don't let Blacks in, don't let, I mean, so those things, you know, I can remember fighting these fights for years, thinking about this structured racism and getting shut down because I'm at a table where people's like, it's not like that anymore. Now's the time for us to show the power and show the strength in our ability to be able to say, we're not just one. Latinos aren't just Mexican, aren't just Spanish speakers. We have to give value and bring up a group of kids, my kids, I think about my grandkids in particular, of what do we want to show them in this world, that they matter. And they're going to be just as dark as I am. You know, I don't know if all of them are going to speak Spanish or want to speak Spanish, but we have to embrace the fact that it's about a culture and a language and a history of people that I think about my grandparents and parents who I stand on the shoulders of, who mean just as much to me about the history of this country and what they've done to build the railroads and working in agriculture, and really making this country what it is, to say I fit in because of them, and I'm a part of America because of them. But my American dream and is not what we often are seeing. We have to define that in a different way.
Yeah, if I may jump in. So in the original American dream, kind of like you were just touching on, was built for the Anglo male. And many people say those people were long gone. Slavery was gone a long time ago. Civil rights movement was X amount of years ago. But the structures that were built with the white male American dream are still in place. But a big thing about redlining is, how do we fund our schools? By the local taxes. What is the key to advancing in this country? Education. So if you don't undo those structures that were put in place by the prior generations, you're letting that legacy live on. And so that's why redlining is so important. And that's why desegregating our communities is so important. That's why changing the way we fund our schools is so important. Why do I have to go to a school that doesn't have a good football field or even good AC system just because my parents were poor? Shouldn't I have the right to the same education as everybody else? So those are the kinds of things that this generation really needs to work on. That past legislation put it in place, but it's time to undo those things. That's my 2 cents.
I agree 100%. I think as a young individual, when I started learning about redlining, I could not believe that this was still going on. And the more and more I learned about it, and the more I got involved into these atmospheres, environments, groups, etc., which goes back to what Irene said earlier. This is why the census is so important.
Yes.
Count ourselves, because it's that it goes back to that. They're not counting us. They're not seeing us in a way, and we're letting it happen. And like Erica's saying, we shouldn't. We should definitely be like, why is it like that? One of the things that I always talk about is the lack of exposure that we have for our communities. We talk about like, what careers do you want to do? But we don't talk about the technical careers. We don't talk about we had Angels from the nail salon, where she's building a whole career from a nail salon for her cosmetology, and she's teaching others, and she wants to build a school. Like, there's so much more that individuals can do in so many different skills and ways, but we're not exposing our community to that. They're not seeing that. All they're hearing is these XYZ careers that don't seem attainable to us. And that's the thing that I'm just like, no, like it goes back. It just really goes back to all this system of kind of keeping us down. And that's what
and it even goes within our own community and the placement of where you are, right? So there are some people in our community that are more educated and have more access. And that was just one of our podcasts that we did with Uzi and Laurie. The whole fact that, yes, there's these amazing, wonderful people here. There's 3 of them here willing to give you opportunity. But like I was telling Laurie, if we don't know who you are and we don't even know that access is there, then it's never going to be seen. And hopefully through just the podcast and someone's seen the fact that Uzi's like, here's my DM, Mike was like, contact me, I don't care, and Laurie even touched on the fact that we need to start talking about high school more, which Diosselyn set up with Randy, because we need to focus on the fact that our high school students are very much in need to understand their scholarships, finances, all of that, because I'm in that space right now where I didn't go to college and I cannot teach my own kids how to do this correctly or find the right resources because I never had it. So it's just a continuous lineage that, yes, my kids they will be able to set the standard and go to college, but did I make the right choice of helping them and figuring out, giving them all the access points they need to even get there?
Well, you can. It's just your support system that we just need to help you put in place. And a lot of times I have found in the school systems I've been in, it's who is in those buildings, because a lot of people coming from outside of our communities that come in that are there trying to tell our students what they can and can't be. And one of the things we put on, we mentioned in that that time with Uzi, was sometimes they're guiding our students the wrong way, that you should be this janitor or this because you're not college material. I mean, it actually happened to my son. And so for some people that are called counselors and guiding our students the wrong way, that should not be happening. They are responsible to actually guide students, listen to students, and figure out where is the plan. What college will accept you. And they should be, if your GPA is in the toilet, well, we're going to get you to community college, right? Community college. You need scholarships. We're going to figure out what scholarships that there are. I mean, if they have scholarships for a person with one blue eye, one green eye, or whatever, I mean, there are scholarships out there. There's numerous of them. So going back to the systems that have been in place, built for, I just say the white man, the school systems that are in place are just as old. And the school system that is in place was developed because off of a system, because the rich had their private school system. That's when the public school was developed for the poor Caucasian to go to school. And that system is so old, it does need to be redeveloped for students, for all students to be successful, because it's not working. It's not working. And that's why there are so many students of color who are struggling that shouldn't be struggling. Because if you've ever been in a classroom with students, Black and brown students, and even some white students who are labeled bad or troublemakers, they have the most brilliant minds. They just don't get sit in a seat, be quiet, and do as I say. But they have the most brilliant minds. It's because the current system does not work.
And it starts as early as elementary. Like,
yes.
I don't know if I probably vaguely touched on it like before in the last podcast, but like starting off, like I was in this honeymoon phase, and then all of a sudden, like I'm starting to notice things, little things starting to build up, and I'm like, some of these issues are starting with the teachers taking things personal. Like say my kid throws a tantrum, my own kid, not even my kid in school. Like I used to, and sure, I'm young, okay. I used to take it so personal. I'm like, why are you throwing a fit? Like, oh, like you're getting on my nerves. And I knew that was wrong. I knew that thought was wrong. And I found myself starting to do it with my kids at school. And I'm like, if I don't want to treat my own daughter like this, I'm not going to treat them like this. Why are grown adults older than me still taking things so personal? I don't want to deal with you. Like, throw them out the room. And then designating a whole bus of kids as being bad, as this is where all the bad kids are coming from. And apparently I'm in the middle of that neighborhood. Well, anyway, it infuriates me. Like, they're like, oh, I'm kind of glad I don't live in the neighborhood where my parents, the kids that I teach, because then I wouldn't hear the end of the whole thing with the school being online and all these things. It's just, yeah, it is racist code talk. It really is. And it gets on my nerves. And like, I got snapped out of it. I was like, we need this equity thing. And I'm kind of glad that the district finally has something, but I wonder how it's going to work down to the elementary schools. Because it starts in kindergarten. It really, the preschool. And honestly, yeah, preschool. My daughter's preschool even. So we need to start.
So a couple of things I'll throw in. We need to see the community college as college. We need to see tech college as college, right? We need to add my kids were in preschool when I was saying your goal is to get to college. My kids' goal, by the time they got into high school, they knew where they had to go. I would say the same thing about my parents, who did not give me a choice. I didn't have a choice to go to college. I didn't have a choice to go to graduate school. And I say that in a way that it's not a matter of, that they forced me. No, that was embedded in me from a young age, that this is what you were going to do. This is where you were going to go. That's where some of your support system comes in. Because I didn't just leave my kids at school. I left my kids in a way that said, here's your responsibility to advocate. Here's my responsibility to advocate with you. And if you don't get what you need from them, that's when we go in and talk to teacher. We go in and talk to counselor. We go in and build the opportunity for them to, no one was ever going to tell my kids they weren't going to college. No one was ever going to tell my kids they weren't going to be ready for college, because guess what? If they weren't, then that meant I had to step in and either help or find what pathway. Was it a career pathway in tech, or was it going to be a career pathway, in college? In other words, or a college pathway. Were they going to be ready? I was never going to let them fail, but they were always going to have a goal. And if you, as a parent and teachers and counselors, begin to see kids at a young age to be able to say, if we imagine every day telling a student, you are going to go to college, you will be, and this is how you are going to do it. Because access sometimes has to be a wall that you have to knock down in order to get, right? But overall, you have to be prepared to advocate for what it is we need for our kids. And it starts, I agree wholeheartedly, it starts at that young level, to get them to begin to start building goals and vision of what it is that they're going to be and do and advocate.
And adding to that, I want to bring in another perspective on this as well, which for undocumented students or for students who have a different status, there is a lot of help out there. Like it goes back to the counselors, it goes back to different things. I was one of those students where I was at Sumner Academy and I had a counselor, I had full IB, I had all these things, honors, etc. I wanted to go to medical school. It wasn't a choice for me. And unfortunately, my counselor did not help me in that. Colleges didn't help me on that. And I've said this before, like I had a fight with lawyers to get my applications accepted into college. And the thing was that, and I'm going to encourage anybody who's like a teacher or anything like that, honestly, it was my teachers, it was my mentors who picked me up. It was Mrs. BP, who I love her to death, and she's going to come on to the podcast with Randy as well. And she advocated for me. She started doing a petition. I had a scholarship as well that I had to fight to retain because they weren't going to give it to me. And she started a petition for me. She connected me with the lawyers who took my case for free. I was this close to just say, forget it. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything anymore. And I even stopped doing my homework and doing all these different things. So for the students who are in that situation, oh my God, don't give up. Like there's so many different options, ways, fundraisers, maneuvers that we can do to get you there. And there's so many organizations out there too that help out and give you those. Even if Centro has a handbook of scholarships that they can give to students, so they know that there's still many ways. And I hear it all the time with so many different students that say, well, they told me that I couldn't do this because of my status, especially in nursing. I've heard it so much in nursing where there's a lot of students who want to go to nursing that are DACA, and a counselor is telling them that they can't do it because they can't practice. That is not right. You actually can practice in so many different ways. So I just wanted to bring in that perspective really, and when we say like if there is investment for students out there and they're listening, or parents that have issues on that way, like there are ways to continue to go forward.
I appreciate you all like bringing your personal stories, especially here, and thank you, Diosselyn, for bringing the other perspective as well, because that's part of our community and we need to continue to voice that. And you're always very good about making sure that they are seen and heard here in these platforms. And I hope they know that. We have a comment that says, I manage scholarships for the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation, so please reach out to her for support with paying for college. So already we have somebody here who is willing to help. I know, Erica, you do some work. You offer to help. Laurie has already offered to help. Irene at El Centro, like you said, you offer help as well. So let's all get together and figure out a way, to support the community. So we had an amazing podcast with Uzi and Mike and Yvonne and Laurie, and then now here on this platform we have Latinas and Chicanas who are like, hey, I'm here to support you as well. And Laura, I just appreciate you bringing that personal story, because on my personal end, and I'll do this real quick, we had to literally make so many sacrifices to move to where we're at right now. But what that meant was we moved from KCK, where we felt like home. We lived right next door to my in-laws. Her sister lived down the street. It was, primarily Mexican community. And then we move over here up north, and it's like, we don't know anybody. We're in this larger home for our family to fit. We were able to make it happen. And then the first thing that happens is racism. The structure gets put in. The way the schools are not set for people of color. The counselors are not people of color. You have a couple of teachers that are people of color, but there's really not people there that understand. There's a lot of people that say they do, but when you reach out to them, it's like, don't really understand. And I've already been coined as that mom because I will not allow them to just dismiss my kids, you know? And I've had to have conversations when there was a bullying incident that happened the first day. It's like, no, this is not going to happen. And I don't know what happens with your other families, but this is not going to happen in mine. And you get coined that parent, you know, whether it's a racial thing or not, I don't know. But it's just a sad situation, and the counselors are not there for them in the manner they need to be. And they put it on the parents, but parents like myself that don't have the education or the knowledge are not going to steer your kids correctly, you know. But I'm a 100% here for them, you know. So I appreciate just bringing that personal story. Before we leave, I want to make sure we go round robin and kind of give some last final thoughts. So Laurie, can you give us some last thoughts on this topic here, or even the one that we talked about earlier too, assimilation?
Yes. Because you're becoming educated day by day, I'm going to need you to stop saying because I'm uneducated. Okay? You are getting educated.
Laurie, I love you. And you know what? I'm just like what I said yesterday. I'm learning, and that's why I just want to tell the community. Like, some people may think, "Oh my God, that girl's stupid," or doesn't know her stuff, whatever. But literally being vulnerable, just like Laura, coming on and talking about what is going on. All of us doing that. It's like you're being vulnerable, so that way the next people can learn from you, and you can learn while you're doing this.
We're all learning from each other. I mean, there are highly educated people, and I just look at them and be like, online degree. No, I'm just kidding. I did online too. I did online too.
I'm starting the season already.
I'm not doing it. I did online too. Most of my college was online, raising a family. Okay. No, I just think this was an amazing platform. It's our job. If we have a platform, it is our job to lift each other up, learning from one another and bringing our voices to the table. That's what we're supposed to do. That is our burden.
Yes. And I hope you guys will be back with me next month, and we'll bring even some more of that burden to bring to the forefront for sure. Erica, what are your last thoughts for the community?
Just real quick, I just want to say, whatever your dreams are out there, I don't care what they are, you can do them. I was, we talked about this a little bit last time. I was really, really lucky to have a really, really good support system that told me I could be anything. And that's why, even though in college I had a classmate tell me he could never see me as an engineer, I'm an engineer today.
Yeah.
But that's because I had a really good support system, people telling me that I could do it. And all of us can. There was nothing extra special about me. I was just told that I could, and so I believed it. That's really all that happened. And so it all starts with believing in yourself and having people be there for you. Mentorship. If you find a good person to be your mentor, latch on and don't let go. I'm still best friends with my pre-cal teacher who's like 70 years old. Okay. And we're still best friends, like to this day. I can call her anytime. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. You can do anything you want to do in this world.
And this is what we need, that type of thing. And I love that you are still friends with your mentoring. That's so important.
Amen.
Go ahead, Irene. I'm so sorry.
No, I just said amen.
Lots of amens here for sure.
That is a biggie. I may have an MPA, next to my name, but you have BADASS behind your name, right? Own it, love it. It's not about, I believe in education because that's the way I was raised. I'm actually I have a electrical engineer and a daughter studying aerospace engineering. What? And another who's criminal justice and about to take that law path, the lawyer path. And every day, what I can tell you is telling them they could do anything and be anybody and helping them get there is exactly the path I took, an example in my parents. And it is not an easy road. I take credit for them, but they did, I helped advocate and I was the parent, but they did a lot of and doing a lot of the work. But they get it. It's a legacy I want want for my father, who gave it to me, who his parents, or basically my parents just were not able to get a high school degree, let alone anything else, and value that enough for their kids. They're just carrying on a legacy. But whatever our kids want to be or do, again, from community college to tech school to college, we have to instill in them the role that we play in helping them get there. Don't let anybody else tell them not to. They have to trust that support system that can get them there.
Thank you, Irene, and congrats to you and your family and just being that support system. Like I said, you lifted me to this space. I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for you and your opening the door. So CEO status here because of the amazing community that was behind me. And Irene, you were definitely at the top, number one, because of that. So thank you. Laura, last words. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so happy to be here, and I look forward to the future conversations that we might have. I am like I guess the epitome of like someone who just like went through it on their own and tried to figure it out on their own, and still like, found short ends and then found maybe some help here and there. But if you need, like, I can help anybody with like secondary education, like just colleges. Navigating those systems is intimidating, and like just I was an average student too, maybe a little bit above average, I guess, but I got through college for free basically, and it's not that hard to do if you kind of just stay on top of it a little bit. And even then, my husband went to tech school and he still makes more than me, and so he's a mechanic and he's making his way up, and we're just do what makes you happy, because he likes working on cars and that makes him happy. And I like teaching, I like social issues, I like these things. Just do what makes you happy. And you don't want to get a 4-year degree, bachelor's degree, and you're like, well, I don't like this. Yes. And start all over, because you realize that maybe you should have pursued what made you happy in the first place. And because the ones who decide how much you pay, or how much they pay you, teachers should be getting paid more. Yeah. But here I am doing the job anyway, Absolutely. So do what makes you happy.
Laura, we love you. We are here for you. And I'm just so glad that you're here for us as well. And I love the fact you brought your husband in, and the fact that you talked about, he just loves doing his work. My husband owns a business as well. And he's does the custom paint and body. And it's a hard work. It is hard, 6-7 days a week. 10, 12 hours, if not more, and then running a business as well. But they love what they do. And I tell my kids all the time, and I'm glad you brought that up, because if you don't love what you do, you will hate what you do for the rest of your life. So whether that means going to college and doing what you love to do, or not going to college and doing what you love to do, just make sure that you love to do what you love to do. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that here. Diosselyn, you're our last one, and thank you so much again for being here and like bringing your voice, bringing perspectives. I love having you always.
Thank you, Deanna. I always love being here and just hearing all these conversations. You guys hype me up. Like I'm like, hey, I'm right here. I'm here. I'm gonna continue the fight. But oh man, you guys all said really good things, and I think what I can say is that whoever is listening or seeing, you guys obviously see that you're not alone. We've all been through so many different things and so many different pathways and so many different perspectives. So definitely reach out, and don't give up. I wanted to be in medical school. It didn't turn out to be. Now I got into advocacy, and now I'm doing different types of work and all these things. And honestly, I'm glad I had that experience, because if I didn't have that experience, I would have never opened my eyes. I would have never sat back and reflected, and I would have never connected to my community the way I did. So sometimes there could be blessing in disguises, and it might feel like it's never ending, but it will get better. So keep hanging on, and know that you're not alone, and that you can reach out to all of us, most likely, and we'll try to figure it out. And if we don't have the answers, I think I got this from a centro, so I might be stealing them.
Disclaimer.
We don't have the answers. Like we can point you somewhere. There's always something. You never know. Yeah. It can be the janitor who knows who has the cousin that it's in, the school board, and can connect you that way. it could be anybody. So don't hesitate on just trying to talk to the big people, anybody and everybody.
And Diosselyn, can I say that I'm so I personally am like I'm so glad you're in advocacy and didn't go the other route, because we need you. You are making this community so much better. And I just always say you're going to be president one day. That's what's going to happen. And I'll just be like the one voting. So we want to leave this broadcast for sure with an amazing much needed ending that Erica brings to our platform last time and brought to it this time. So we're going to end with her and what she has to say, as we all share what she is thinking and what she's about to share. So after she gives the piece, we are going to go ahead and end, and we just hope that you all come back with us next month. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to any of us. And we're just so glad that you're supporting your Latinas and Chicanas in your community, your educators, your community leaders, your CEOs, your children, your high schoolers, your everybody. So I just want to end with that and thank you all for being here. And Erica, please take it away.
Just real quick, Black Lives Matter and Breonna Taylor's murderers are still free. It's been 152 days.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.